What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and I have to apologize because this is the second time that I'm putting this video together. And this time, the magic microphone in front of me does not have a little red light that I cannot see. Today, we're going to be talking about tight ends and tight end prospects as they relate to the Dallas Cowboys. As a part of our pre-draft coverage, we now have less than 2 weeks to go until the 2023 NFL Draft begins. And I'm putting this video together for you on Friday, April 14th, 2023. It's a busy day in terms of our production around here at Blogging the Boys. As I record this, Brandon, Laurie, Mike Poland, they're filming the latest mock draft that you'll be able to watch here on the YouTube channel. I'm going to play Madden in a little bit, get our latest episode of the Madden franchise series up and running, which is why I did this video yesterday. And those of you who did see it, because I know there are some of you before we caught it, just what happened was I turned the microphone. I'm scared to touch it at this point in time, but I turned the microphone to kind of adjust the angle. And this is a really sensitive microphone. There are no actual physical buttons. It's like a phone, or I guess a modern phone. And so you just kind of touch different things to adjust the volumes and sort of run your finger along. And I must have somehow accidentally muted the microphone. So I recorded the entire thing and nobody will ever hear what I had to say. So apologies, those of you who looked for this video on Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, and heard me say nothing. So we are here once again to talk about a position that the Dallas Cowboys are certainly going to address at some point in the 2023 NFL Draft, as mentioned, then that is tight end. As far as the Cowboys tight ends, we obviously have to understand what we're looking at here. Dalton Schultz left the team in free agency. The Cowboys really made no concerted effort towards bringing Schultz back. The Cowboys have Jake Ferguson, a fourth-round selection of a year ago. They have Peyton Hendershot, who was an undrafted free agent a year ago. Remember, Dalton Schultz himself was a fourth-round draft pick 5 years ago in the immediate aftermath of Jason Witten's first retirement. The Cowboys do also have Sean McEwen, so they have some options. And I understand there is a lot of optimism around the fan base in Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot, Fergushot, Frick and Frack, whatever you want to call them. But it does remain true that adding a dynamic playmaker to this offense would not be a terrible idea. Now, I'll be honest with you. When the draft process started, there were two things that I was sort of against by principle, and that was a running back, obviously, in the first round. Bijan Robinson is sort of the name to know in that sense. I've come around a little bit on that. I've talked about that on some other shows and in some other videos. I'm not a huge proponent for it, but I certainly hate the idea less than I did at one point in time. And that certainly holds true as far as it relates to tight end. I don't necessarily believe in drafting a tight end in the first round. I understand there are examples that you can pull for anything in NFL history, right? Somebody can say that's impossible. It's never going to happen. And you can find an example over the 100-year history of the NFL, over 100-year history, to disprove that point. I recognize that. But that being said, generally speaking, tight ends do not contribute a lot their rookie seasons. In fact, since 2000, only one rookie tight end, not just first-round tight ends, only one rookie tight end period has had over 1,000 receiving yards in their rookie season. It was Kyle Pitts just 2 years ago in 2021 with the Atlanta Falcons. And Kyle Pitts, of course, a top 5 pick, not just a rookie tight end, a generational prospect. And I think we're all really interested to see what the Falcons offense looks like this year with him and Jonnu Smith in the fold. But this isn't about that. This is about whether it's worth it or not for the Cowboys to consider drafting a tight end with their first round pick, which at this moment is the 26th overall selection. Now, important names to know as far as they relate to the Cowboys. If the Cowboys are going to draft a tight end in the first round, I feel like it would be one of these three. I feel like we would be very, very, very shocked if the Cowboys took a tight end at 26 and it was not one of these three players: Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame, Dalton Kincaid out of Utah, and Darnell Washington out of Georgia. Let's take a look at a few different things here. Now, Michael Mayer is kind of the I don't want to say the safest pick, but he's the most can't miss, the least missable one, at least in terms of evaluation, right? He has it all. He is a well-rounded, tight end, maybe not the most immense vertical pass catching threat. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe that's your kind of cup of tea at this point in time. But if you want to be super safe, if you want to lay up on 13 at Augusta National with the T's moved back the way we saw them at the Masters this past year, if you are not shooting for eagle here, you're fine walking away with birdie. Michael Mayer's your guy. And that's not a knock. That sounds like a negative thing. That sounds like we're poo-pooing him and what he offers or what he may offer an NFL team. This is, that's what you want, right? That's why the Cowboys have been so successful with their first round picks in recent memory. It's because they have taken the can't miss players. They have taken the low hanging fruit, so to speak. And people, again, do poo poo low hanging fruit. The lowest hanging fruit is the sweetest for a reason. So Michael Mayer is a name to know in that sense. Now, if we take a look at NFL mock draft databases, consensus mock draft, Michael Mayer is the player who was most frequently mocked to the Dallas Cowboys with that 26th overall pick. You do see Dalton Kincaid there at 24 going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the territory, like I'm saying, where one of these tight ends is likely going to be available. I would be stunned if all three of the players who we mentioned a moment ago are off the board entirely for the Cowboys. It's very possible that Dallas is able to kind of make their choice, whether they do want Michael Mayer or maybe they want Dalton Kincaid. He's the one. If you are all about, I want the weapon, I want to score points, I want to put up 100, I want to light up the scoreboard, sequence in, sequence out, drive in, drive out, Dalton Kincaid is your cup of tea at that point in time. Now I'm going to pull up the consensus big board here from NFL mock draft database if you give me a moment, but I kind of lean this direction. I've got to be honest with you. Now, I hate the term window. I hate the term win now. I'm not a fan of that. By general rule, I think it's silly to kind of say that about NFL teams because name a team. I mean, and be serious with me, but name a team who is incapable of winning the Super Bowl. And I know you're going to say different teams and things like that, but my point is like if you follow other sports, if you follow the NBA, MLB, I mentioned the PGA Tour, that's a horrible example, but this is a league of parity, right? We see different teams. There's always a team that goes from worst to first within a division. Look at the Jacksonville Jaguars a year ago. Now, there are some extenuating circumstances that sometimes happen there, but the general point rings true that just about every team in the NFL can win the Super Bowl. So that's why I don't like the term win now, whatever. But the Cowboys have such an incredible offense. We had a video recently here on the YouTube channel where I discussed Mike Clay's recent projections for the Cowboys. They're projected to have the fourth most wins in the NFL. They are projected at this point in time, 2 weeks before the NFL draft, to finish as the top seed in the NFC. Dak Prescott projected to finish just shy of 4,000 passing yards, almost 30 passing touchdowns. Again, according to these projections, 7 of those touchdowns to both CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, with 5 going to Brandon Cooks. If you drop Dalton Kincaid into an offense that features that triumvirate of wide receivers with Tony Pollard out of the backfield, I have a hard time seeing how they are not challenging for the very best offense in the NFL. And you've got your Patrick Mahomes' Chiefs. The Eagles are still going to be very good, obviously. The Buffalo Bills likely going to come back around. We'll see what they ultimately look like. The Cincinnati Bengals are very good. But this Cowboys offense is currently constructed with the addition of Brandon Cooks, with Michael Gallup another year removed, obviously, from the torn ACL. If you drop Dalton Kincaid into that mix, he is your guy. He is a slot receiver playing tight end. And that's why this would be my preferred direction if the Cowboys do ultimately take a tight end. He is a tight end named Dalton who wears number 86. I recognize that is the lowest of low possible hanging fruit, but he is my preferred choice if the Cowboys take a tight end. Now, I mentioned the consensus big board from NFL mock draft database. Michael Mayer, again, by consensus, the best tight end prospect. And that's because he's the best overall. And a lot of times those things tend to raise them up, I should say, because NFL teams don't want to take chances. They certainly don't want to take chances in the very first part of the draft. You can't burn your first round pick, right? No GM can do that, can survive by doing that. So Michael Mayer makes sense as the number one tight end prospect, again, by consensus. It kind of depends on where you look. Dalton Kincaid right there at number 2. As you can see, generally mocked to the Jaguars at 24, with Mayer going to the Cowboys at 26. Darnell Washington, and I'm going to get to the names in a moment here, but take a look at their kind of projected areas here. Again, based on all the consensus, the 48th overall selection, Luke Musgrave, we're going to talk about in a moment, at 47, and Sam Laporte, who I know a lot of you had some thoughts on during a recent mock draft here on the YouTube channel. These are the names to know. These are kind of the top 5 tight ends, obviously, to pay attention to. Now, Darnell Washington, there's an argument, right? And there, I think, are a lot of people who are in love with the measurables, with the athletic profile, right? You're talking about a 6'6", 264-pound player, as we have here on the screen. That is a monster in the middle of the field. That is a mismatch nightmare. There is no linebacker who can play in and play out, run with somebody of that size and stature. And so maybe that's your flavor. But again, if we're playing value, if we're playing, high floor, if we're playing you can't miss in the first round, I would be very stunned. I mean, I would truly be stunned is maybe just a hair too far. I would be pretty shocked if the Cowboys took Darnell Washington with the 26th overall pick. But again, maybe they are absolutely in love. Maybe they feel like this is the answer. Maybe they feel like this is the player who's going to change their lives, who's going to change their offense. I mean, there's a general rule of thumb that you don't want to draft a tight end in the first round. Darnell Washington would be kind of leaning even further into that direction here because there is a little bit more unknown. And that's what doesn't work against Michael Mayer or even Dalton Kincaid. There's just a little bit more understood in terms of who they are as players. Now, Dalton Kincaid, in case you're wondering, I know we're talking about Darnell Washington here, has some injury scares and injury concerns. And that's why you cannot necessarily roll the dice in the first round, especially if you are in a win now place, a win now area, whatever you want to call it, like we do think the Cowboys are to some degree. Let's get to the aforementioned Luke Musgrave. Again, not really an option for the Cowboys at 26, but a name to know. I mean, the Cowboys, I think we all believe, are going to take a tight end at some point in the first 3 rounds. We're going to be live, if you did not know this, if you're new around here, throughout the entire draft here on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. So if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel in general, that would be awesome. But if you do want to do that so that you're ready for all of our draft coverage, it'll be myself and various BTBers. We don't want you to miss that. We'll have a lot of fun. We'll be together. And I don't think that there will be a world where Friday night, after the 3rd round is over, the Cowboys have not addressed the tight end position. I know I can look. The subject of this video is tight ends. That's why we're talking about the position as a whole. I still don't know how likely I think it is that the Cowboys are going to take a tight end. I understand that that's the easiest thing to mock to them because they have not technically addressed the Dalton Schultz departure in free agency. But again, are they going to spend the 26th overall pick on a tight end? I don't know, but I do believe with all of my heart that they are going to spend one of their first 3 selections, which is why we have to know the name Luke Musgrave. Is he as talented of a player as the previous ones we've talked about? Obviously not, but he is still somebody who merits consideration for the Cowboys in that first, 2nd round area. And you're going to have to pay, right? You're going to have to pay if you are in love with a prospect, and that's ultimately what this always comes down to. And there are some people who are willing to pay the ultimate price for the final player we're going to discuss here, and that is Sam Laporte. We had I laugh because we see the comments, and last week we started our mock draft series that Brandon Laurie has done such a great job with here on the YouTube channel. And like I said, they are currently filming this week's edition. He and Mike Poland, our friend from UK Cowboys, but Brandon Laurie and David Howman did a mock draft where they took Sam Laporta right at the very top. And I understand that some people think this is a bit of a reach. Again, if we look at the consensus big board here, the consensus big board, Sam Laporta is the 5th ranked tight end. And you're talking about, we're talking about, projections having him going at 51. And again, you're looking at these top 3 players as arguably first round grades, right? If you really want to slide Darnell Washington up there, okay, or not first round grades, but first round picks. Luke Musgrave and Sam Laporta, you're talking about, generally speaking, 2nd round selections. You look at 57 right next to Sam Laporta. The Cowboys had the 58th overall pick. So what would you be doing taking him in the first round? I will say there are a lot of people. I am not a scout. I am not an evaluator. I'm not somebody who's been blessed with that eye. But there are a lot of people whose opinions I trust, a lot of BTBers and beyond, who are absolutely in love with Sam Laporta. Now, maybe you are somebody who's saying, that's fine, be in love, but don't be in love at 26. But sometimes you have to pay. That's the nature of the NFL draft. Sometimes you have to pay for the player you want. And it's quite possible that the Cowboys or whoever else want Sam Laporta badly enough. But I can tell you, if the Cowboys were to take Sam Laporta in the first round, that would I think that would cause a bit of a riot on the internet. So let's take one last look at the consensus big board here. Those are the names to know. I feel I would say 60% confident that one of those top 5 names is going to be a Dallas Cowboy. Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, Darnell Washington, Luke Musgrave, Sam Laporta. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, obviously, and I don't even know that it's going to happen, but that just makes sense based on who the team is, what they've done, their current holes, their current needs, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, for all we know, all this talk is moot and meaningless, and the Cowboys don't even draft a tight end. A year ago, this is not apples to apples, but a year ago, we sat here and we talked about how the Cowboys were absolutely going to draft a running back because they were likely going to get out of the Zeke Elliott deal in 2023, which they did, and they were likely going to let Tony Pollard walk in free agency, which they did not. So things can always change. What do you think about this entire discussion and conversation? Let us know. Let me know. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa, on TikTok, rj.ochoa. You can send me an email if you'd like, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. I mentioned we see the comments. You can always comment down below, and we'll do our best to get to those as well. Apologies for muting myself the first time around. Shout out to my computers who were here for the whole thing, and my dog who was here for the whole thing, both of them. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we all need a mulligan. So I needed one. So I appreciate everybody putting up with that. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. We'll see you next time.